Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Teams Like Brighton. It's a shame that this podcast was basically formed of Graham Potter saying Teams Like Brighton, and now he's at Chelsea. So we've come full circle-ish, and we're now previewing Brighton versus Chelsea, the return of Graham Potter. And as Tomo has aptly nicknamed this pod, taboo or not taboo? And that's not as in taboo, as in we can't talk about it, but that is the question. So, Tom, the $1 million question. When Graham Potter and his team, including Mark Cucurella and all the staff and everyone, the whole lot of them, when they come to the AMEX, do you think fans should boo or not boo, or is there something in between?
I don't want to say something in between because that's just sitting on the fence and that's pleasing nobody. I think Brighton fans who want to boo, I think they have every right to be honest. I think when you look back at Potter's tenure, there have been so many times where it's just it's there, but it's not. Everything is great up until the final third, and we could probably reminisce about all the games that we were so near but yet so far when it comes to draws and losses at the end of the match, when really we should have beaten them convincingly. And it was just something where the players just needed a bit more time under Potter, and the moment it starts to get good, then there's a serious offer coming on the table and he's jumped ship. Now I get why he went. I mean, bigger club, Champions League football. There are a lot of things that kind of think, yeah, he's gone for football terms, but at the same time, he's gutted us out. He's taken his own coaching staff, which is fair enough, in Billy Rees and Bjorn Amberg. That's fine. Bruno going and Ben Roberts going hurt a lot of fans. Bruno, El Capitan, he's loved by the fans. He's loved by Brighton fans. And we touched on it before about Bruno's statement. He's made his bed, you have to sleep in it now. And while I agree, football reasons, it's a great move, but it's just that there's a lot of hurt from Brighton fans and a lot of frustration there from, I think, how Potter's done it, how it happened. And it's just that there seems to be quite a lot of our coaching infrastructure that's just gone out the window. And that was a lot of hard work that, not what Potter's done, but what Dan Ashworth left. That was almost like his legacy there. Immediate legacy anyway, when we look into the first team. Ben Roberts was renowned as one of the best, if not the best, goalkeeping coach in the Premier League. And we can see how well he's done developing Matty Ryan in the Premier League, and how Roberto Sanchez has done since his loan spells over at Rochdale and Forest Green Rovers. So there are so many big fundamentals in the coaching infrastructure of the team, and Potter's just taken that away from us. Now, on the other side, it's great because De Zerbi's basically just coming in on the blank piece of paper and he's just done his own thing rather than having to worry about whether or not to integrate certain people. But I think it is going to be a tense atmosphere. I think the moment he comes out, he's going to get booed a lot more than he is going to be clapped, because really, what's he done for us? I mean, no one's going to clap for us being the top 10 club. Because we should really, if the pessimist in me, if we didn't have those two really bad runs in the Premier League, we could have had Europe. Just 2 wins could have got us Europe. And then I would have been on the side of clapping him. But, I'm more inclined to be on the booing side. But that's the fan in me.
Yeah. It's a lot of fair points there. I would say, obviously covering the club for 2 years, become very fond of them. I can definitely see why a lot of fans will be annoyed. As you say, he took, not only take himself, he took Billy Reed's assistant coach, Bjorn Hamburg, club legend Bruno, but also player recruiter Carl McCauley, goalkeeping coach Ben Roberts, There's also talk of, head of recruitment Paul Winstanley going. And I've seen some comments online from Swansea fans saying, well, this is just what you did to us. But I think in terms of scale and degree, it's more stark here because I think it was just Bjorn Hamburg, Billy Reid and Carl McCauley. Correct if I'm wrong. So
no, that's right.
Yeah, so that's half or so of the numbers, and it can get even more because there's been talk of Moises Caicedo and Leandro Trossard potentially going, and I think the more sort of this stuff happens, the more Brighton fans are likely to go, no, I'm done with this. I would say, just on push back on the one thing, I mean, I do think Potter deserves a lot of credit for getting Brighton to their highest ever finish in the Premier League and record points total in the Premier League. I'd say I remember when there was a lot of talk about how great a job Graham Potter was doing when Brighton were hovering above the relegation zone in sort of the his first season in charge in 1920, and then is it not 1920, as in 2019, 2020, and then 2020, 21. I was like, oh yeah, I could definitely see that there's taking time and there is sort of marginal gains here. But I was like, for him to really earn the plaudits, he needs to have a really good season. And then I think he did have a very good season, fantastic season, coming ninth. And I think that should not be forgotten. I do think the sort of the phenomenon of one act, however big or small, can literally just everything that comes, years of hard work, that can just be forgotten in one moment. But it's an interesting sort of, if you're on a seesaw, like it's tipping, or the scales, whatever, which way is it going to tip? And it's interesting because I think that from the players' perspective, some of them who won't sort of be Brighton fans like yourself and others, they will look at the man and go, for example, Adam Webster, before the Tottenham game earlier this month, he said, I owe Graham Potter a lot. He brought me to the club, which wasn't a straightforward process. He always gave me that trust out on the pitch, and it wasn't just him, it was Billy, Bruno and Bjorn. So there will be a lot of affection for him from the players. But yeah, I think, the stuff like after there was a few hundred boos at the Leeds United game last November. He was that infamous comment when he said, maybe I don't know I should remind you of Brighton's history type thing. I think stuff like that, when you look back at like a relationship that's ended sour, you look at maybe more at the bad things. And I think, I do think a bit of balance is needed. I won't be booing him, but that'll be weird in the press.
I mean, I would love to see that. Right in the press box, just make that really awkward.
Everyone's just sitting down, and it's just me going boo. No, I think I think he definitely did a good job, and I think it's understandable to go, but the way it's been done, it's definitely going to leave a bit of taste in the mouth, and I do think it maybe leads to the question: should there be a managerial transfer window? Should that be put in a January or something like that? Because I mean, what was it, 6 games? Brighton had 13 points out of 18, top 4, and then he's gone and there's been lots of asset stripping. So it's it's definitely going to be an interesting one, and I wonder how sort of the wider media will frame it. I personally think a lot will say, oh, Brighton were ungrateful, and they'll go back to that sort of the small amount of boos for the Leeds game. And I think
it will, that bit kind of annoys me, because even though I said that the booing will be justified at the weekend, if we really look at that Leeds game, it was a case of people just needed to grow up. I get why people did it. I get why people were booing, and it was just last season was such a great season overall, but there were 2 really, really frustrating spells. From September we went on an 11-game winless run, and then in the new year, around about February time, we went on a 6-match losing streak. and then we drew. So then it's a 7-match win streak. So there was 18 matches there on long spells where I felt like both those runs we should have easily have got more points, and B, just it just felt fans' frustrations at the end of it. I think there was a lot more relief at the end of the season from the fans than there was, shall we say, joy for what we did, because there's still patterns under Potter where there are those frustrations. It wasn't clicking, and I think that's why a lot of people got really excited at the start of this season, because it was clicking. It was amazing. That Leicester game at home was easily the best game ever at the AMEX. I think it was the most complete performance under Potter. Everything just clicked.
Better than the 4-0 Man U. Gotcha.
Okay, one of the most complete performances. But then again, United had nothing to play for. Really. Leicester was struggling, yes, also. But I think United one was just pandemonium. That was just a freak result, really. Even though we played them out of the park, that was just for a team like Brighton, that shouldn't happen. A team like United, with the quality they had on display that day, shouldn't happen. So yeah, I mean, quite tight terms of which one's going to be the most complete. I would say United probably just because of the clean sheet, but that Leicester win this season, that people left the AMEX, people left the ground thinking this might be it. We might be able to do it. And we were talking about it. We were talking about Europe, but that was heavily relying on one person, and that was Potter. Potter was like the key bit of the molecular structure that is Brighton's DNA at that point, and it just went boom the moment Chelsea came knocking on the door. So again, that is why a lot of people are frustrated. I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated. I think a lot more people are frustrated now because, granted, De Zerbi's had a really testing run where he's had Liverpool, he's had Man City and Spurs. He's faced in his first few matches at the Albion. Now he's got Chelsea. I mean, the guy couldn't have come at a worse point.
Yeah,
really. So I think there are frustrations with we're not getting the results, and people probably thinking, well, if Potter was here, we might have got a win here, or might have got a draw there. So they're going to take out their frustration on Potter for that as well, just because, well, that's just the emotion in most fans. But I do see why people are booing, and I think it's justified, really.
Yeah, my personal hope is that it's more the sort of energy is just transferred into a fantastic atmosphere, and that propels Brighton to beat Chelsea, and then that can really sort of be like, right, this is the Roberto De Zerbi era, who's obviously still looking for his first win. They showed a lot of good signs against City, and obviously that Liverpool game was fantastic. There was frustrations against Brentford and Nottingham Forest, the two games that they should have beaten Nottingham Forest, and they should have picked up at least a point, I think, against Brentford. So yeah, I think that will be great. But yes, it will. Hopefully it will really make for an absolute feverish atmosphere, and they really get behind the team. Because yeah, I mean, that would just be so good if you beat the team that have tried to basically take everything from you and could return for more. That will be a big one. But just one thing to add. Do you think that's what about Mark Cucurella? What about him? What do you reckon his reception will be?
I think if people boo Mark Cucurella, they've missed the point completely, because we knew he was going. We knew he was gone in the summer. It wasn't a case of if, it was a case of when. And really, we thought we knew who. We thought Man City had him. And you know what? Many people just said, fine, 55, 60 million, whatever it was, he's yours. We named our price. We were totally for it. We were supportive of it. We enjoyed our time with Mark Cucurella. I love the guy. I'll applaud him. I've got no issue with that at all. He went because, well, Champions League football came knocking, better setup. He wanted to stake a claim in Spain's World Cup squad. He's not going to do that with us. No offense. Sanchez is third choice, and that's just nothing role really. It's a transition. You know, you've got Unai Simon, who's number one, and then David De Gea number two. I mean, you can't get harder than that. But then again, is Sanchez's spot got at stake now? Because Cabaret's Balaga, he's doing well.
Yep.
So again, I think Marco Correa was thinking, I've got to compete with what's in store. Jordi Alba's at Barcelona. I'm at Brighton. Chelsea knocking on the door. I've got Champions League football. This is a chance to prove myself to Luis Enrique. I've got to go for it. So yeah, if people boo Marco Correa, they're just as bad as the boo boys at Leeds. I get booing Potter. Don't get booing Marco Correa. Do not get that.
Fair enough. And we are going to find out a little bit more about Brighton's upcoming approach on Saturday with Daniel Childs, who's a broadcaster, Chelsea writer and presenter for Football London. So looking forward to hearing what the opposition have to say.
And joining us to talk about all things Chelsea is Daniel Childs over at Football London. Daniel, how are we?
I'm doing really well, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
Good man, good man. I suppose we should just jump into it and just address the elephant in the room then. How has Graham Potter done at Chelsea, in your opinion?
I think relatively well, given a lot of things out of his control that I think any coach coming into the situation would have struggled with. He's come into a club that's just has had quite a stressful year, a change in ownership, sanctions, sacking quite a popular head coach quite early on into the season, the high expectation, the pressure that comes with being in that dugout. I think he's dealt with things well. And I think that when you actually look at the results, some of the performances, the improvement in certain players, I think generally when you just actually look at the results and the performances, I don't think I could have asked for much more, to be honest, given where he took over.
It is touching on that new ownership. Obviously, Chelsea had a reputation of sort of hire them, fire them, but still having success with the different managers. So they weren't sort of going to go down a different line because it was still working. I think there's been a lot of talk about going down the long-term route, and that's why Graham Potter was hired. Do you think that will actually be a long-term thing, or do you still think it will be within the confines of you have to finish in the top four or win a trophy?
That's something that's very hard to answer currently. And I think it's very easy and understandable for outsiders to look at the new ownership and think they're just going to do the same thing as Abramovich did, because you've just sacked a coach, one of the best regarded coaches in European football within 7 games of the season beginning. But we have to wait and see. And I think that's the unfortunate and kind of frustrating thing currently about when you're speaking about, say, a set of players, a coach compared to, say, an ownership, is it is a much sort of broader, bigger, longer term picture that you can't make sharp conclusions within a couple months of their ownership beginning. And that's kind of just the obvious thing. What I would say about the choice in Graham Potter, I think, is quite fascinating, because you replace Thomas Tuchel, a guy who has worked at the highest sort of echelons of the game. He's worked at PSG. He's worked at Borussia Dortmund. He won a Champions League with Chelsea. Probably his next club will be one of those super clubs. He will be in sort of that bracket of coach. And usually under the previous ownership, when we replaced a coach like that, you bring in another coach who's had a CV of winning big titles. Graham Potter, for all his positives and things he's done in his career, does not have that CV. And I find it quite fascinating that what was suggested when Graham Potter took over at Chelsea was the new ownership, and sources around the new ownership were kind of suggesting that there'd sort of been this confusion from outsiders coming into the game of how there was kind of this pool of elite managers at the top of the game who would move from big club to big club to big club, no matter if they'd succeeded or failed. And kind of just the feeling of, why can't we just give this guy who's clearly done a great job with less resources and promote him into a bigger environment with more resources and see how that works out. So in that aspect, and also if we just relate it to what Bowley has done with the LA Dodgers, they've had their coach, I believe, coming over a decade now, or close to that, effectively. So as I say, it's a difficult question for me to answer, and I understand the cynicism, not only in terms of Chelsea regarding head coaches and our short-termism, just not even in terms of like Abramovich. I mean, in our history, you look pre-Abramovich, it seems to be a thing with Chelsea. We just don't have head coaches very long. It's kind of in the DNA of the club for some reason, but we will see.
And from a fan's perspective as well, how has the fan base reacted to Graham Potter's approach, not only just as a coach, but also his tactics? He was very well known for his fluidity in formations. How's that been received by the Chelsea faithful?
There has been a little bit of an adjustment period. I think the good thing about Potter, from Tuchel to Potter, is there are tactical similarities, which I think is quite good, because Chelsea have this habit, particularly recently, of jumping from one head coach to another, and the style between those head coaches don't really fit. So you have a lot of awkward transition between those coaches. But there was absolutely shock. I remember the Wolves game, an early one, where we went into it and we just beat an AC Milan very convincingly. And he made 7 changes, and and we were looking at that sort of starting lineup going, this looks almost like a League Cup team. This does not look like a Premier League team in a game that we should be winning. We won the game convincingly 3-0. I find it fascinating. Like, the RB Salzburg game was another great one where people got the lineup an hour before, and it took us quite a while to understand where everyone was going to be playing. Now, I find that exciting and interesting, and actually it paid off for Graham Potter, and I think that there was at times, unfortunately under Tuchel, as it went on, a predictability to the way Chelsea played, in the sense that there was a repetitiveness. With Potter, you don't have that. I'd say the only thing that he's got criticism for so far is, I don't know if this is something that Brighton fans can relate to or not, maybe a sense that there's a lack of a meritocracy, where a player comes on in one game, comes off the bench or starts, plays well, but then doesn't feature in the next game. And I think that is something that some supporters have found difficult to sort of wrap their heads around, because it's like, just logically, if a player has played well and has impacted the team winning, why aren't they playing again? Which is something different.
Yeah, good points there. Obviously, amongst Brighton fans, there's a lot of debate raging about how to receive Graham Potter and his staff this weekend. Obviously, it wasn't just him. It was, assistant, first team coaches, club legend Bruno Salter, goalkeeping coach, recruitment analyst, and there's even talk of Brighton's head of recruitment, Paul Winstanley, going. In terms of just from a Chelsea perspective, is there a sort of maybe a sympathy, or is it kind of just like this is part of the food chain? Because I think it'll be interesting to see what reception Graham Potter gets at the AMEX on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I found it quite funny that there was so much analysis about Potter when he was doing so well at Brighton. You'd listen to sort of podcasts with people not related to Brighton going, Potter needs, he should get a big job soon. And there was a lot of sort of that feeling about it. And then when it came that it was going to be Chelsea, there's a lot of people getting very upset that it was Chelsea. Like, he should go to a big club, but not that one. And kind of it was almost like this kind of Star Wars thing of him turning to the dark side, which I think was a little bit childish, to be honest. And I'm not having a go at Brighton fans if that's the way they feel, because obviously that's a coach they're personally connected with. I'm just talking about sort of the outside sort of world regarding football and kind of referencing in that way. I don't know. I think that I find it interesting just looking at Potter, the way he's dealt with, say, the media so far, and kind of the way he isn't the most interesting person to listen to be quite, frank, when he's in press conferences. And maybe there is a disconnect there. And, I can understand why Brighton fans feel upset about it, but this happens quite regularly, particularly away from the Premier League. This is something that happens quite frequently. If you look at the Bundesliga, if you look at the Liga, Serie A, you see teams, coaches from smaller teams in those leagues who will get promoted into the bigger jobs. It doesn't happen quite frequently in the Premier League. Usually the big Premier League clubs take coaches from, say, Borussia Dortmund, PSG, those poorer clubs. So it is a little bit different. But I don't know. I can't speak to what the reaction is going to be like on Saturday. I don't know if Chelsea fans are that fussed, to be honest. I don't know if that's going to, and to be honest, it could make the atmosphere a lot better, and it could make the afternoon, if Chelsea were to win the game, a little bit of sort of bragging rights. But I don't see, there doesn't seem to be a bad relationship between both clubs, at least the way they've been working in recent months.
And going ahead into the match, obviously we know how Potter's style of play is. Where do you see the key battles happening in the pitch? Do you see it happening in the midfield, or is it between the defence and the attack?
I think currently at Chelsea, the two big areas to look at for me are, central midfield, and also who fills in on the right side of Chelsea's defence / wing back without Reece James. That is an awkward problem for Graham Potter to solve. I think he was quite inventive in what he did against Salzburg, where he played Christian Pulisic there, just trying to sort of fill in, because without Reece James, who is one of our best players, it really is an awkward thing to kind of replace. And it may be Cesar Azpilicueta there, who, for all of his professionalism and durability at Chelsea, he does not offer the same sort of creativity and energy in that area. And particularly the way what was kind of informed by Potter with what he did so well at Brighton was those wide players, was the wing backs, was the width in that team. And I think the battle out there, as it was between Potter's Brighton and Chelsea last year, with Marc Cucurella and Tariq Lamptey, those areas are always so big, I think, in these games. So I think there as well, and just sort of the mobility within central midfield. I think that Chelsea are really struggling at the moment in central midfield to kind of find concrete solutions there, because N'Golo Kante is injured until February, and there kind of have been inconsistent performances from the players that Potter has selected. So I'd say those are the two big areas that I'd be looking at.
You touched upon Marc Cucurella, another sort of polarizing figure, you could say, at the moment. Obviously joined for Chelsea about 55 million plus 7 million add-ons. How has he done so far?
He started really well. He got in front of Ben Chilwell quite quickly. He came off the bench in the first game against Everton and looked really bright. And he started off playing primarily as a left wing back for Thomas Tuchel. Since Potter's come in, he's mainly been playing as a left centre back. He did it in his first game. He played there against Salzburg on Tuesday. So that's kind of been his primary role. His performances have dipped, but I do think some of that can maybe be related to an illness he suffered, where I think he even had to go to hospital for it. And Graham Potter spoke about this before the Salzburg game. But he's come in for a bit of criticism because he has been a little bit erratic. There have been a sense when he's consistently played in that left centre-back role, Potter's tried to use both Chilwell and Cucurella on the same pitch, which I think over the summer when we made that signing, I think a lot of Chelsea fans were interested to see that experiment. But it hasn't quite worked as seamlessly as I think people expected it to with both players. I mean, just watch the first half against Aston Villa. That side was really challenging for Chelsea to deal with, and it hasn't been the best few weeks for Cucurella. But I think there have been positives. I think he is a player that Chelsea needed to sign over the summer to have the cover for Ben Chilwell. And on the ball, when he is in form, I think he is a really crisp passer of the ball. And for a team who wants to have possession and wants to build up from the back, as we know Graham Potter likes, you can see why he remains in the team despite some sort of shaky performances.
And who are the other key players Brighton will need to look out for ahead of the match?
Kepa Arrizabalaga, he's almost, you could call it the remontada of Kepa, has been quite extraordinary under Graham Potter. He's come back into the team. He has started every single game under Graham Potter so far, and I suspect that will continue at the AMEX on Saturday. He's bailed Chelsea out, and he looks a much more confident goalkeeper, which is wonderful to see considering how low things were for him. I believe he conceded a goal at the Amex. I can't remember who scored. I think Trossard scored a goal, and it was in that period under Frank Lampard where things were really going wrong for Kepa, and just to see how he's improved since then. In defence, Trevor Chalobah has been immaculate. I mean, he's got this record, which touchwood does not end this weekend, of when he starts with Chelsea remain unbeaten. So defensively and also offensively on the ball, he I think is a little bit underrated with the way we progress. Thiago Silva's wonderful. I'd say in attack, it's still an unpredictable area. There has been improvement from Graham Potter, but you're not quite sure not only who's going to start in that area, but also who's going to perform. I'd still say Mason Mount remains such an essential figure for Chelsea in the way we look to build up. I'd say he'd be the player if I'm looking at this game and I'm looking to shut down Chelsea, is trying to stop him getting on the ball, because as we've seen under Graham Potter so far, if he's playing on the left, if he's playing on the right, if he's playing central in say a 4-2-3-1, he is really, really difficult. He's a nuisance. He gets into positions that I think opposing defenses find very difficult to nullify. So I'd say Mason Mount has probably been, along with Kepa, the top performer, top outfield player so far for Potter to use, and it's been working well for Chelsea.
You touched upon N'Golo Kante being out until February. Can you? I know we're speaking on the Thursday as we record this, so it's before the press conference tomorrow. But can you tell us the latest sort of Chelsea team news and who might be missing for the Brighton game, please?
I think the big doubt at the moment, other than N'Golo Kante, Wesley Fofana is out until after the World Cup, so he won't be available. Reece James is obviously out until after the World Cup. Obviously, we mentioned Kante. Kalidou Koulibaly is the one doubt. He did not feature at all in either of the last two games against Man United and Salzburg. I believe had a knee problem in training late last week. So he was not risked against Salzburg, but there is a hope that he could be involved. We won't know how ready he is until Graham Potter's press conference. He is kind of the big doubt. Thiago Silva had a really awkward landing that I don't know if anyone saw against Salzburg late on in the game. He seems to be okay, but there is a thing with Thiago Silva of despite his brilliance at his age, his minutes have to be managed at times. So there's always kind of maybe a temptation to take him out. But I think with the quality of opponent Brighton are, I think that Silva will still remain in the team. Other than that, it seems to be a clean bill of health. I mean, Chelsea have had a lot of injury problems recently, so touch wood, that's it. But I'd say Koulibaly is the one to look out for regarding like a real doubt in the players that we already know won't be available for this game.
And I suppose going ahead to this weekend, Daniel, what do you reckon the score is going to be?
We sort of did a prediction over the next couple of weeks, and the opponents for Potter continually get sort of worse and more tricky before the World Cup break. And I think this kind of starts it, the final 3 Premier League games. I think it's going to be a close game. I mean, Brighton, I think they've kept a lot of the good things that Potter sort of instilled in them in the performances I've seen. And I expect if Chelsea are going to win, it's only going to be by a goal or maybe 2 at most. I think I'll go 1-0. I think it'll be a tense game to Chelsea. I can't see at that stadium, and particularly as we've already referenced, the expected narrative of this game is very, very high on the scale. So I suspect that Brighton players and kind of the atmosphere in that stadium will want to see a massive 3 points to kind of get a bit of redemption after a few turbulent weeks. So I can only see a tight Chelsea win if it is going to go in Graham Potter's way.
Richie, what about you?
Yeah, I just feel there's going to be Potter's going to be the party pooper and rain on the Brighton parade. And yeah, I think they'll huff and they'll puff, but yeah, I think a 1-0 Chelsea win sadly.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a full house there. It'll be interesting to see how he celebrates, because I've got a feeling it's going to be in the dying embers of the match as well. I can see this being a really tight game, and my chair's just broken. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what actually happens going ahead in the match. But yeah, I'm going for a 1-0 win to Chelsea as well.
I expect lots of wing backs on both sides. I expect it's just going to be a wing back frenzy because it seems like Graham Potter wants all of Chelsea's players to at least play at wing back at some point. So I think it'll be the wing back derby, if anything else.
Oh, you will enjoy that. Yeah, there have been plenty of players who have played the wing back role for us. Pascal Gross stands out for me as well on a number of occasions.
Yeah, not the fastest chap.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like Kovacic doing it. So I'll be looking forward to seeing that on Match of the Day one day probably. But yeah. That's everything here now for teams like Brighton. Thank you so much, Daniel. Really appreciate your insight there.
No worries.
And enjoy the match, but not too much.
I'd say the same. Let's hope it's. I'm not going to say a draw because Chelsea need to get back to winning ways in the league, but hopefully Brighton have a decent season even without Graham Potter.
Brilliant stuff.
Nice.